Yo, what's going on, positive people? As promised, we're going over Arc Hunter, and in my opinion, I truly believe it's one of the strongest builds in the game. This build has it all. Massive amount of survivability, resilient stacks, healing, but also it's a huge amount of ad clear, massive DPS on single targets, and on top of it all, it's spammable. One of my most favorite features because it makes it extremely consistent. Anytime that I solo content or if friends are relying on me to do a certain role, I can always count on this arc build, and what makes it better is that it does not rely on any kind of seasonal artifact to make it good. It's good every single season just the way that it is. Now the exotic that we're using is Liar's Handshake, which says after we melee or get meleeed, we get cross counter, which gives 200% increased damage to our next melee. The way that the build works and feels is a lot like when you're back in the day playing some kind of, I don't know, Mortal Kombat or Smash Bros. Or something like that, and you're trying to do some kind of up, up, down, down button combo. That's the way it feels. You're constantly in their face. Essentially, if you have your dodge, go up to an enemy, you dodge, you punch it. If they die, great. You'll get your dodge back, then you'll go up to the next enemy, you'll dodge and you'll punch him as well. If they don't die, then you just keep punching because they're already jolted, they're killing the ads around them, and you're doing increased damage per punch. It doesn't take very many punches to kill a target. Even champs fall after just a couple of punches. Once you kill your target, though, you'll get your dodge back and you'll start over. Your dodge will give you your melee will give you your dodge. It's an endless cycle that's just built inside of Arc Hunter, and it is fantastic. As you can see in the background, you are constantly in the face of enemies, punching your way through, and it's the most fun that I ever have in game. I love when I'm using this build. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's go take a look at the mods and the build fragments. Peace! Most of this should look pretty familiar, but let's get right into the aspects and fragments. I'm not surprised that we're using the Gathering Storm Super. I know that Arcstaff did get a buff. There's no problem with using either one of these. I'm sure that they're both great. I just like Gathering Storm, to be quite frank. Gambler's Dodge is a necessity, paired with Combination Blow. The way that this works is Combination Blow will give you back your dodge after you get a kill, and Gambler's Dodge will give you back your melee if you dodge near an enemy. These two combined together are basically almost the entirety of the build. That's why the exotics are so interchangeable, but I like the exotic that we're using the most. I'm using pulse grenades out of pure preference. You use whichever grenade you want. In this particular class, it actually does not matter which grenade you use. You will get your grenade very fast, so choose whichever one you like the most. Next we got Flow State and Lethal Current. Flow State sounds great on paper. By defeating a jolted target makes you amplified, but surprisingly that's not actually why we're using it. We're using it because you're more resilient while dodging. Because you will be dodging constantly. You'll dodge, you'll take a punch, you'll dodge, you'll take a punch. You're actually dodging most of the time, and then half of the time your punches are healing you in the process. That's why it's so easy to stay alive in this build. Then we got Lethal Current. After dodging, your next punch will then jolt and have increased range. It also leaves a damaging aftershock. Worth noting that when it says jolt, you can actually dodge and then punch an overload and it will stun that. And if you dodge and punch an unstoppable twice, it will stun the unstoppable. But you have to punch the unstoppable twice. The reason is because the first one will jolt and the next one will blind. Now the fragments are going to look very similar to both Warlock and Titan if you actually watched one of those, or if you watched my old or last season's Arc Hunter build, or if you watched my last season's Arc Hunter build, it's going to look very similar. We've got Spark of Resistance because you will be punching and in the face of all your combatants, so being surrounded you'll take less damage. Spark of Shock just to make those grenades that you're getting constantly a little bit more lethal. Spark of Feedback because if you take any melee damage, your outgoing melee damage goes up and it's already really high. I also like the extra 10 resilience, knowing that the resistance goes up the higher you can get it. I've got mine set at 100, so I do recommend you get it as high as possible just so you can stay alive in almost all content. Spark of Beacons says while you're amplified, any arc special weapons will create a blinding explosion. This one's not necessary, it's just a good one. There are many other options like Spark of Magnitude, which will increase your pulse grenade duration. You could do Spark of Amplitude just to get a couple more orbs of power, although if you happen to look while at the beginning of the video, there was no need for more orbs of power. You're making plenty. Although that we're getting our grenade back every 2 or 3 punches. You could use Spark of Ions, which defeating a jolted target will create ionic traces. This is just more ability energy. But those are our fragments and aspects. Let's go take a look at the mods. Here we have a look at the mods, and I have to let you know, most of the build itself is not based around mods. That's actually one thing that makes this build extremely good, because the entire build is based off of the exotic plus your combination blow and gambler's dodge. The amount of damage that you can amp up on your punches, it's carrying the entire loadout itself. With that being said, on our arms we do have heavy-handed to create orbs, and if you do any melee damage, which you constantly will, a lot of the times I actually don't even end up shooting with this build. I end up just punching everything. It says causing damage with your melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. I'm constantly punching everywhere, so this reduces your grenade cooldown all the time. In the boots we have recuperation, which says picking up an orb of power will actually heal you. Then we have innervation, picking up an orb of power will give you grenade energy. Now every time you punch something, you'll create an orb, you'll get grenade energy just from impact induction by doing damage with your melee, and you'll get grenade energy from innervation as well. Then after you've killed your target, it will then refresh your gambler's dodge, which then you dodge to get your melee back. But after you dodge, you'll activate bomber, which will then reduce your grenade energy another time, and distribution, again, reduce your grenade energy as well. So all of these things are just added benefits to reducing your grenade energy, because your build is not built on the mods itself, so you're able to just spec all this stuff into grenade energy because your build is actually working off of the arc subclass of the hunter all by itself. Just combination blow plus the aspects plus gambler's dodge, that's doing all of the heavy lifting. Now I do have a powerful attraction. I do think I was just trying it out, but I do end up liking it. It just makes it to where every time you roll, which is all the time, you're picking up those orbs. Most of the time it's just extra energy coming into you, or maybe even you get a little bit of health back from it from picking up a random orb. If you're running solo, obviously you probably won't need this one specifically. So if you are running solo, I would recommend just running another bomber or something instead, because no one else is making orbs but you. Over here on the right, you'll see a quick glance of all of the artifact mods I've got going on. Obviously, we've got the mods that work with arc and melee, because both of those are something that we're interested in using. We have amped up to say amplified longer. Thunderous Retort, because it makes our arc super do bonus damage while we're amplified, which is all of the time. Amplified shielding is just another way that we're having damage reduction. Keep in mind we've got 100 resilience, which is a 30% damage reduction. We have one where dodging we get resistance incoming damage, and then also it says while we're surrounded we have resistance to incoming damage. Then we have our own resistance mods inside of our chest piece, and now anytime that we're amplified we also have damage resistance. So we have all of this damage resistance stacking up, which is why it's really hard to kill us. And then all of our healing comes in, because if we get a kill while we punch, then it heals us, and if our punch does not kill them, that's fine, you just punch again and liars will heal you, and that's why we're using liars. That way you get that health off that second punch. And then once you do kill your target, you get an orb, which will heal you again. These are all different ways to heal. We've got shock and awe, which will just cause an extra bit of lightning and DPS around the area. Whenever you're punching your target, you'll see a bunch of lightning strike other things nearby. This is super beneficial for this season, but come next season this build will still be good, so keep an eye on it, keep it locked into your loadouts. And then of course lightning strikes twice. We're already getting our grenade every couple of punches, and now it comes back even faster because we're going to keep this thing procced just by punching everything else. Your grenade energy is going to be feeding back even faster. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys really enjoyed this build. This is my favorite build in the game, and I use it all the time. Not the best build for GM content, so I would say try not to just take this build into like a GM content, run up and punch everything inside the face, but it is an insanely good build for even master content, dungeons, raids, ad clears, strikes, I don't know, you name it. Just everything shy of GMs. But with that being said, it is a fantastic build. It's a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this series as far as the Arc subclass. Don't forget that we've got Void coming out next. I appreciate you all for being here. I love you. I'll see you next time.